Bootstrap provides quite a bit of styling options when it comes to tables, and so we're going to look at a bunch of the classes in this video. To begin, let's go ahead and add a new HTML page called Table Classes. .html, and we'll start off with our usual template and paste the content of it into our new page. Furthermore, the inspiration that I drew from this was the table that you'll find in the HTML5 elements plain.html, and all I did was just copy that table out, and we're going to use that. And the way that we're going to use it is I've created a little template off screen of a row with a table in it. So I'm going to delete this and I'll copy my row in and paste it in like so. All right. And let's do this. First of all, tables are considered opt-in. So we'll, in other words, this is the default table. And now let's create a second row with one table in it. And we're going to opt into the styling for the table. So this will be a table opted in. And all we need to do to get this to work is set the class equal to table on the table. So let's compare the first two items. All right, so here we go with the default table. Nothing to be all that excited about. The opt-in styling, however, will take the full width of the container that it's in. In this case, I just put it into a 6-column cell, and so it kind of stays nice and tidy. So it's kind of the basis for everything else we're going to do. We're going to need to apply both the table class as well as additional style classes after it to achieve the effects that we want. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy the whole thing here and create another row. And here we're going to create an inverted table. And so instead of black letters on white, we're going to go with white letters on black background. And so we'll just type in table-inverse. You can do the same thing with individual parts of the table. For example, the T-head, there is a T-head class, T-head inverse, and we'll do the same thing here and set the T-head, class equals T-head default. So let me let's go table T-head default, table T-head inverse, and then here we're just going to go table inverse. All right, so let's see what we've accomplished. All right, inverted table, table with just the head inverted, and then here's the head that is your default color styling for the head. Okay, nice. All right, there's also some styling you can apply to each of the rows. There's quite a few different options there. So the first one we'll do is a stripe table. So table striped, and all we need to do is apply the table-striped class. Next up, we'll apply the, we'll make it bordered. So we'll apply the table-bordered class. And that's pretty much all we're going to get with regards to styling for an entire table, but I'm going to come back and show you how we can style individual elements like entire rows or individual cells using the colors, the contextual color classes that we learned about previously. All right, but before we do that, I still want to talk about two other styles. There is a responsive style table, and to achieve that, what we need to do is wrap our table in a div like so, and then in that div we'll set the class equal to table responsive like so. All right, and then so you can imagine what table responsive will do, and we'll see how that affects the layout in just a moment. And there's one other variation on this, and it's called reflow. Let's see, Z that. And let's grab this one more time. Actually, let's grab this one. And we'll add it here, and we're going to call this reflow. And what reflow will do is actually change the axes of the table so that it fits in a more responsive manner. That gets kind of interesting, honestly. So we'll go table reflow. All right, and then we'll come back and do some more in just a moment. All right, so let's scroll down and find where we left off. All right, so here is the stripe table. Here is the border table. And you know what? There's actually one more that I forgot to show you. I'll sneak it in here in just a moment. Hoverable rows and a smaller version. But you can see the reflow, how it takes the columns from across the top and it puts them down the side, and it takes each of the individual what were rows and makes them into columns. So interesting. And it obviously is making that available for a small form factor. It'd be easier to see that perhaps than using the scroll bar like you'd have to do here in order to see everything in the responsive version. Notice that the reflow also will push any columns to the next logical row of the table set of rows if it can't fit them all in nicely. So that's another interesting little change that's made there. The border table just has borders on all sides as opposed to the black. You have a lighter gray color border. Let's go back. I forgot two of them. I'm really sorry about that. And here's what we'll do. We're going to go hover in order to add a little interactivity. So table hover. And then there's also a small table. So let's take a look at that as well. So here we're going to go table SM for small. Small. And let's look at that. All right, so where are we now? Here's table hover. And when I hover my mouse cursor over, you can see you get all the rows hovering. And then the smaller version, you can see there's just less padding inside of it. On tops, bottoms, and the left-hand side, I imagine on the right too, although we don't get a good example of that. Okay, so ideally it would fit into a smaller form factor. All right, the last thing that I want to talk about here is how to use the contextual colors inside of our table. And so we can apply it to an entire table at a time. So let's go contextual color for the entire table, and we'll just apply this and say table active in this case. All right, and then you can use any of these, success, warning, you know, any of them will still work. But you can also apply these on a at a row and cell level. So let's go ahead and remove that, and instead we will use at the row level here, we'll just pick a random row inside the body. So here class equals table, let's go active, I guess, and then pick an individual cell here. Class equals table success. All right, let's see what we get. All right, so you can see that here we've applied the color, I forget which one we chose, to the entire table. And then here we're applying just success and I believe just active. Here, I don't like active. Let's choose something more interesting for that row. Let's go info, maybe. I'm not sure what to expect there, but Let's go to the bottom. All right, well, it's a little bit more interesting, blue at least. Okay, and so you can see a lot of different styling options for tables, and even making them responsive so that they'll work well in small form factors. Obviously, I'm working with a very tiny table here. Yours would probably be a little bit larger, and you definitely could benefit from working with the reflow. Looks like I blew that away. I'll add it back in here. Okay, so let's continue on the next video. Thank you.